What is up, Key Issues Legends? Recently, Garrick and I have been discussing a lot of the animated content that DC has been putting out. The DC Animated Movie Universe, aka the DCAMU, is a term used for a series of animated films initially based off the New 52 continuity. This universe technically began with the release of Justice League: The Flashpoint Paradox, and it has continued until now, but it is not necessarily contained only to content from the New 52. Other stories do show up in here. Also, not every animated film released after this timeline had started is part of this universe. Confused yet? Great! Now, unlike the majority of the New 52 titles, this 11-film animated universe is actually straight up fire. Garrick and I love this animated universe, so we thought to ourselves, you're a YouTube channel. Why don't you rank all of the films and see how many people disagree and attack you personally in the comment section? So that is exactly what we're going to do. So suit up, legends. We're going to war.
Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell to become legendary so you don't miss any Key Issues content, and let us know if there's any legends down in the chat.
The DC Animated Universe currently has 11 animated films as of right now, which you can see on the screen in chronological order. The latest film at the time of this recording is The Death of Superman. Now, there have been other films released during this timeline, but there are only 11 that are considered part of this animated universe. So that being said, we're going to get started with the rankings right now. In 11th place, we have Batman Bad Blood. Batman Bad Blood combines a number of Batman books into one shambled Bat story, using Heretic, which is a one-time villain from the Batman Incorporated run, as the main villain, combined with a fairly convoluted Mad Hatter / Talia al Ghul plot to brainwash Batman and other world leaders. The entire film just kind of falls apart. Heretic isn't a great villain to begin with, and his most notable achievement in the comics was killing Damian Wayne, who Heretic, is actually a clone of. However, they didn't really do that story here, so Damian lived. They really didn't push that boundary enough. The film focused a bit on Batwoman, a bit on Nightwing, and a lot on Damian, and it also featured the debut of Batwing, which was probably a high point for this. Ultimately, it kind of collapses under the weight of its own ambition. It attempts to cram too many stories into one film. At number 10, we have Batman vs. Robin. Batman vs. Robin is loosely, and I do mean super loosely, based off the Batman Court of Owls storyline that was superstar writer Scott Snyder's true breakout into Batman in DC Comics. This story focuses on Batman and his son Damian, who's acting as Robin at the time. Batman is made aware of a shadowy organization of socialites in Gotham known as the Court of Owls, who have secretly been controlling an army of undead assassins called Talons, since Gotham, was basically in its infancy. The story focuses on one particular Talon named Talon as he attempts to recruit Damian, and there's also a subplot similar to Batman R.I.P. where Batman has a girlfriend and she turns out to be a bad guy who's running the Court of Owls, but overall the entire thing pales in comparison to the actual comic event, which I recommend you go and check out. The movie isn't terrible, but compared to the source material, it gets a D- for didn't actually follow it. Next up at number 9, we have Suicide Squad: Hell to Pay. Suicide Squad was a film that was released closely in proximity to the actual live-action Suicide Squad that so many people are a fan of. Suicide Squad: Hell to Pay is a bit out there. It focuses on a Deadshot-led Suicide Squad as they take a quest to steal a magical card that will help a dying Amanda Waller bypass hell and go straight to heaven. That's weird. It's weird to even write. The film features a number of mystical elements that kind of seem weirdly out of place in a wide cast of characters, including Zoom, the Nightwing villain Blockbuster, and Dr. Fate. It seems more like a film where they attempted to put a bunch of semi-popular characters together into a film rather than tell a cohesive story. The film isn't irredeemable, though. See, it does feature some great fights and decent dialogue. Zoom was a real high point in the film, even if his presence didn't make a lot of sense. At this point, since we're starting to get a little bit higher into the list, I will include some highlights. And one of the highlights of this film is basically any fight scene with Zoom in it. At number 8, we have Justice League: Throne of Atlantis. This film is based off the Aquaman crossover event of the same name and featuring a very special appearance by The Trench, a group of deep-sea monsters that were first unveiled in the Jeff Johns New 52 run of Aquaman. I think in the first 3 or 4 issues they were all about The Trench. This movie is actually pretty fire. I know Garrick disagreed with me on this, but it really does have an awesome story. Aquaman and the rest of the Justice League have to fend off a war between Atlantis and the surface world. This movie gives Aquaman a real chance to shine and kind of culminates in a massive battle between the Justice League and Ocean Master and the Atlantean forces. Orm, aka Ocean Master, is able to incapacitate all of the other members of the Justice League and really gives Aquaman a chance to shine and save the day. This movie also continues the grand tradition of knocking out Green Lantern in every animated movie. I feel like he gets knocked out a lot. Pretty much every Justice League movie he gets hurt pretty bad. The guy has the strongest weapon in the galaxy and he gets destroyed in every movie. I love Green Lantern, but they gotta show him some love. A highlight of this film would be Aquaman and the Justice League versus Orm. This battle is legitimately awesome, and it shows the strategic genius of Ocean Master in action as he's able to incapacitate every member of the Justice League. Taking the number 7 spot is Teen Titans: The Judas Contract. Teen Titans: The Judas Contract is the first film in this list to be loosely based off a story that was in no way part of the New 52. The original Judas Contract was a new Teen Titans story from the 80s, and is well known and pretty much beloved by everybody who likes Teen Titans comics. This film is sold off the back of Deathstroke, who shares a large amount of the screen time. The film shares the same relative plot as Deathstroke is able to infiltrate the Teen Titans using a double agent named Terra. Deathstroke is working for Brother Blood, who has a plan to absorb all of the Teen Titans' powers in order to become a literal god. However, Deathstroke fails to capture Nightwing, who doesn't actually have any powers for Brother Blood to absorb, but due to needing this element as a plot device, Deathstroke sacrifices Terra. Brother Blood is completely defeated eventually by the totally awesome demonic Raven, and the day is saved. The Teen Titans are a really awesome property, and it's no wonder that they're higher up on the list. I feel like if they would have struck a little closer to the original Judas Contract, this film could have, and probably would have been, one of my top picks. A special highlight of this film is the apartment fight between Dick Grayson and Deathstroke. Not only is there some harsh language, but there's a really awesomely choreographed fight scene in there, in addition to Dick Grayson's signature phrase, "Bring it, asshole." Just kidding, that's not really his signature phrase. I don't think I've ever heard him say that before. Coming up at a spooky number 6 is Justice League Dark. Okay, now first off, if you don't like Swamp Thing and you don't like Constantine, then you can just stop right now because both of those characters are awesome. The Justice League Dark made their debut as a team in Justice League Dark number 1, also during the New 52. This team was formed to take on supernatural threats that the regular Justice League were not acclimated or properly prepared for. This film serves as an origin story for this grouping of characters as they have to work together to stop a demonic entity known as Destiny from destroying the world. This film features fan favorite Matt Ryan, the actor who played the live-action version of Constantine, reprising his role in animated form. It also somehow manages to shoehorn Batman into an extremely large amount of screen time. Batman and Constantine do have some solid exchanges in the film, as Batman has to accept the fact that he doesn't know nearly as much about what's going on as the master of the occult, Constantine. See, Batman was never in the Justice League Dark, but DC cannot refuse a chance to put him into a movie. It was also a good chance to see the Justice League face a threat that they couldn't defeat without the help of more magically inclined members of the DC universe. Zatanna was awesome, and Swamp Thing was very cool, albeit sorely underused. The movie also featured the rhyming Etrigan the Demon and Deadman, who is one of the most underrated characters in DC in my opinion. A highlight of this film is when Swamp Thing basically bodies everybody, but then gets his corpse ripped out of his body and dissolves into plant goop during the final battle. That was pretty awesome. At number 5, we have Justice League versus the Teen Titans. This movie has virtually all of the characters that I want to see in anything ever. It has a whole new 52 Justice League lineup and all of my personal favorite Teen Titans. This movie focuses a bit on Damian being a bratty dick, but he seems to be that way in the comics also, so you know what? +1 for accuracy. However, the movie really takes off when it focuses on Raven's backstory, which is absolutely bonkers. The film is called The Justice League versus the Teen Titans, but they don't really have a true conflict between them. The majority of the film features various members of the Justice League under supernatural control, so that when they do face off against the Teen Titans, it's under that premise. The film does an excellent job of cementing the Teen Titans as a real, legitimate, world-saving team. Without the Teen Titans, it's very possible that the greater and stronger Justice League could have been destroyed by entities they didn't understand, aka demons. As far as highlights, there's a pretty bitchin' fight scene where Superman breaks the Flash's leg to free him from demonic possession. Also, little known fact, Justice League vs. the Flash's leg was initially the name of this film, but it didn't test very well in focus groups, so they went with Justice League vs. Teen Titans. Number 4 is Son of Batman, and it is another story based off of a non-New 52 story. Son of Batman follows the Grant Morrison story that contains nearly the same words in a different order, Batman and Son. This story sees Talia al Ghul drop off a young Damian Wayne to his father, Batman's care. This story is centered around Deathstroke and Talia's attempts to unleash a swarm of man-bat creatures onto the planet. However, the real star of the film is Damian, and it's not so much a film about Batman as it is about what Batman does to the people around him. Damian starts off as a bratty pain-in-the-ass child with semi-decent training, but by the end of the film, he's an all-star hero who wants to live up to his Bat family legacy. The film didn't get the best scores upon release, but overall, it's a fairly decent film that we felt deserved better praise than it received. A highlight of this film is after Damian defeats Deathstroke, he has the option to kill him and he doesn't, claiming the title of Robin and stating his commitment to being a real hero. Breaking into the top 3, we have Justice League War. Justice League War is technically the first film to take place in the DC animated universe. Justice League War focuses on the formation of the Justice League as a group as they get together to take on Darkseid, the new god and ruler of Apocalypse. This film is pretty closely related to the first arc of Jeff Johns' New 52 Justice League run. This run went on to be straight fire, so please make sure to check it out. The film is overall just really well put together. It focuses on what made the comic so good and stuck to that formula. When you stick to the source material, you're undoubtedly going to make a better product than you would if you just attempt to adapt a series of things into one shoddy story. This film culminates in a badass fight with the entire Justice League kicking a massive Darkseid's ass. After all, this is animation, so you can get away with a lot more. This film has a ton of highlights in it, but Batman riding a parademon into Apocalypse to save Superman from being turned into a parademon is probably the biggest highlight for me. At number 2, we have the newest DC animated film, The Death of Superman. This film, again, not technically based off of New 52 content. It focuses on adapting and telling a far more comic-accurate version of The Death of Superman, though. The Death of Superman tells the story of, well, the time Superman died. So, come on, who hasn't read The Death of Superman? If you haven't read it, leave your address in the comments section, and somebody will come lift up the rock that you've been living under for the last 20 years, freeing you to go out and explore the world. This film features an absolutely great representation of Superman, and they really nail the tone and terror of Doomsday. I mean, when he shows up, he literally just immediately starts murdering everything in his path. This movie is definitely not a movie for kids. The original Superman Doomsday animated film wasn't bad, but it failed in that it attempted to shove the entire death of Superman story and the return of Superman into one film. It seems like DC's learned their lesson and they're willing to stop and take their time. When it comes to action, this film has some of the best fight scenes in any animated film so far. If there's anything holding this film back, it's this weird Lex Luthor part of the film, and the fact that this film is going against one of the greatest animated films ever released, which we're going to discuss in a second. A highlight of this film is certainly the end battle between Superman and Doomsday. You need to see it to believe it. It's that good. The last film in the grand champion of the key issues ranking of DC animated films is Justice League: The Flashpoint Paradox. This film is based off the event in 2010 to 2011's Flashpoint that gave birth to the New 52 and subsequently gave Jeff Johns the keys to the DC castle. At this point, DC had squashed all of their previous canon and folded it into a new universe. This pissed off a lot of fans, but the underlying story of how it was created was incredible. The Flashpoint Paradox focuses on the Flash as he wakes up in a universe that he doesn't identify with or understand. First off, he's powerless. Second off, the Justice League doesn't exist. Third off, nobody's ever heard of Superman. And lastly, the world is on the brink of destruction due to a war between the Atlanteans and the Amazonians. Again, this film is kind of dark, so I would probably not recommend it to younger children. The Flash must team up with Thomas Wayne, aka this universe's Batman, Cyborg, and a bunch of other heroes to uncover the mystery of what the hell happened to this universe, what happened to the universe he knows, and how can he restore the timeline. There's a lot of cool things that happen featuring a lot of awesome scenes, a lot of different depictions of characters you already know. A special highlight of this film is the last scene of the movie. Thomas Wayne, the father of Bruce Wayne, is able to communicate with his son via a letter that he gives to the Flash before his timeline is erased. I won't spoil it for you, but let me tell you that I really can't watch that film without the waterworks starting, so, shut up. I'm still tough. That is it for our definitive ranking of the DC animated movie universe, but we want to know what you think, so feel free to tell us all about what films you agree with and what films you think we got wrong down in the comments. Let's try to keep it civil down there in the comments section. Nobody wants a Death of Superman level bloodbath in there. Please feel free to like and subscribe, and thank you to our Patreon supporters on the screen right now. This has been Nick with Key Issues, and you know the motto, comics over everything. Flashpoint Paradox, more like Paradox. Hey-oh, Fast Eddie featuring in the comments section, boy.